Hey, what's going on, everybody? We are live. I am Adam. This is Highly Articulated, and today we're going to talk about toys, as we do. A little bit of a curveball one, as the thumbnail would indicate. But we will get there eventually. What I will say is that it's a good time to be collecting toys. I mean, there's just so much cool stuff to get. Last couple weeks have been a little bit slow as far as toy news go. I think I think that's turning around very quickly. We've got oh, wrong mic. You're not getting any sound?
That's probably better. That's weird. Okay. It had connected to the wrong mic, so you are absolutely right. Does that sound better now? Hopefully that sounds better. It was different. It was different. It was this microphone rather than this microphone. Okay. We got it. Okay. All technical difficulties have been worked through. We're good to go. Great time to be a toy collector. Toy news coming hard and fast now. I think we've got, toy show in Germany. We got a toy show coming up in New York City. Convention season is just around the corner with news and reveals and all that kind of stuff coming from those. So I think we're very much out of the sort of holiday lull that we get every year. And we're right back into full swing. Now we're right about to bump into Chinese New Year. So as far as the production end of things, there's not going to be as much news for the next, 6 weeks or so. But in terms of reveals, releases, things of that nature, pre-orders and all that kind of stuff, I think this season's hitting the ground running. So today we are going to talk about toys. As I said, we're going to talk about some Four Horsemen stuff. We're going to talk about some Mattel stuff, a few different Mattel things, which is weird because I don't really collect any Mattel things. And we are going to talk about the G.I. Joe Day reveals that Hasbro did. So that's what's on the docket today. It's going to be golden. Let's say hello to the chat. Gatey's Toys, JMac77, Brian Carr, Josh Brown, Larry's Geeky World, Imperious Rex collects as well. Good to have you, buddy. All right, let's get right into it, shall we? Very early Festivus miracle, absolutely. Okay, so the news from Four Horsemen. These now I can't remember what these are called. They're Infinite Legions crossover. So this is the Four Horsemen doing crossovers with other creators, other IPs, other things sort of outside their own toy box, so to speak. So this is a crossover between Four Horsemen and Joe Manganiello. These are effectively characters from his D&D campaign that he sort of runs. I'll be honest, I don't really know much about that. I don't know about his campaign. I don't know much about him apart from being sort of an actor and a D&D guy. These figures look fine. Actually, these figures look great. Let me let me correct that. These figures look fantastic. However, for me, they don't do that much. I mean, they look like D&D figures to me, which is great. I mean, that's great. As far as me, for my sort of personal collecting tastes, these are very, very specific characters for a very, very specific audience, I think. Although I do think Mythic Legions collectors, Four Horsemen fans are really going to be excited about these. These are these certainly do offer a lot of new parts, a lot of new tooling, a lot of fun and interesting stuff. For me personally, I'm just not, I don't need these two figures in my collection. As I said, not because they're bad figures, not because there's anything wrong with them at all. They look fantastic, great looking figures. I just have found myself in the last last few months, in the last sort of year, not really scaling back on Mythic Legions, because I don't sort of have that. I'm not like, oh, I'm focused on this or I'm focused on that. But I found, when I look at my Mythic Legions shelf, there's not a lot of stuff that I'm like, oh, I still want, this, or I still want this. The thing that I still like about Mythic Legions is sort of really different and interesting creatures and critters and things like that. Whether they're sort of animal type things or goblin type things, those are the figures that really pique my interest. I already have a dragon. I have a Rakagor, and this head sculpt, these head sculpts feel awfully cartoony to me in a weird way. I don't know, like, they don't look cartoony. I'm trying to put my finger on exactly what it is about these head sculpts that I don't love. But I really couldn't. It doesn't feel like a Mythic Legions figure, I guess, to me, which is weird. I mean, it's Four Horsemen sculpting it. It's probably a fair amount of existing Four Horsemen parts. But they just don't do as much for me as a lot of other stuff has. And I don't know the lore, so I'm not sort of drawn in that way. And I don't, like I said, I don't really know who Joe Manganiello is in terms of, like, outside of like his sort of acting or whatever. And I don't even know what he's been in acting wise. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't tell you a movie that he's in. I just know that he's an actor, and I know that he's into D&D. That's literally all I know about him. So I'm just not drawn in by these. But if you are, they are available now from Four Horsemen's website, storehorseman.com. And getting them now is going to be the best price that you're going to get them at. I think the dragon's $75, and then the new female figure is I want to say like $37 or $40, somewhere in that range. Yeah, but anyway, Quip is here. Good to have you, buddy. Mr. Ryan Clark joining us as well. Quip saying, I like that 4-H is starting to dabble in collabs. Joe M is a real one. These will have limited reach, though. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, is like, I think these are Mythic Legions figures to Mythic Legions collectors, but then sort of beyond that, I don't know how many D&D folks are going to go, oh, Joe Manganiello's characters have been made into action figures, I'm going to go out and buy those. I genuinely don't know. I hope it's lots. I hope these are wildly successful. But I just don't know. I just don't know how much crossover there really truly is, objectively speaking, for action figures outside of an action figure market, if that makes sense. So I sell bicycles in real life. That's sort of my 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job is retail. I sell bicycles. And the sort of the conversation that always comes up is like, that everybody rides a bike, and the reality is, it's like 10% of the population in like North America rides a bicycle. And then and so it's sort of like, if you make the assumption that everybody is interested in something, then you're clearly missed, objectively what's going on. And so I think that's what happens with toys a lot. You hear people make comments, or people say like, everybody wants this, or everybody's going to pick these up. Everybody's excited about these. Okay, well, everybody within a particularly small demographic might be, but how big is that demographic? That's really the nut that toy companies are trying to crack. So, Justin Mohan says, in all honesty, if you have to scale back, we get it. You have limited space. Yes, I do. I have no space left. Proof of that is in video form on the channel. If you want to check out that collection video, which is a terrible video, by the way. I felt bad putting that out. I got to do a better one. For the 2026 collection video, I promised that it would be better. I will take more time. I think I'll do it in segments rather than sort of in one continuous thing, because I realized that the lighting was terrible. Can't see anything. I got my shaky hands, all that kind of stuff. So I'll try to do better next time. But yeah, my space is non-existent anymore. Joe M. was Flash Thompson in the original Spider-Man movie. He was? I haven't watched that in a long time. I'll have to go back. Quip says, One Tree Hill, True Blood, the latest Pee-wee movie. Never watched One Tree Hill. I think I watched one episode of True Blood, and I did not watch the latest Pee-wee movie. Why not? I think it kind of came and went. It was in sort of one of those times where, I didn't have enough time to watch it. It probably still is it was Netflix, I think. I think it's probably still in my Netflix list. But I know full well I'm never going to get around to it at this point, because just more stuff has come along, So, JMax77 says $100 for this size figure is a tough sell, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, it's. Sorry, my nose is stuffed up, and I tried to clean it out, and now it's very itchy. Ugh. Okay, I'm done. I won't do that anymore. This is the last time. Okay. It is a pretty big figure. I think, it's got digitigrade legs, maybe something like that. So it looks smaller. These pictures are a bad representation too, because these pictures are not next to each other. These are two pictures sort of put together for the purpose of this slide, but the scale is off. The dragon is the female figure is about 6 inches tall. The dragon figure is like more like 10 inches tall. So it's quite a big figure, with quite a bit of stuff. But $100 for any figure, I think, is a tough sell. I'll be totally honest. $100 for a figure is a lot of money. And I mean, it's everything keeps getting more expensive. I don't hear from people like saying, well, everything keeps getting expensive, but I keep making more money. I keep getting raises. That doesn't seem to be the case. People's money, people's income, people's sort of spending seems to be here, and the cost of everything else seems to be going like this. So it just becomes one of those propositions of like, okay, well, what are things, how much value does something have that you're willing to sort of spend that limited amount of money on it, I think is like, so that's a bit of a tough one. So I don't know. I mean, but there you go. JMax77 says, I have him in my cart and he's $93, including taxes and stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of money. And Quip saying that the new Pee-wee movie is still on Netflix. It's silly fun. I enjoyed it. Maybe at some point I'll put it on in the background while I'm working or something like that. Ryan Clark, he was Deathstroke in the post-credit scene for Justice League, which ultimately went nowhere. And I think ultimately will go nowhere too, right? At this point. Josh Brown says I definitely jump in on the $75 pre-order price on this one. Yeah, I mean saving $25 off the retail is probably worth it. JMax77, he's not 10 inches, only brute scale, not ogre scale. Really? Josh Brown says they called him brute and a half. Okay. I thought that they would be using. I didn't watch it because, like I said, I saw the design at Legion's Con, and it doesn't do anything for me. So you'll have to forgive me. I wasn't completely informed on sort of what's going on here. I was somewhat under the impression, without doing any research and being incorrect in my assumption, that they were using like some of the parts that they're using with that ogre scale lion. So this is smaller. Okay, yeah, that's different because a lot of that ogre scale stuff is priced almost like standard figure. So yeah, maybe not. I don't know. Value is subjective, so I don't know. Yeah. Oh, this is okay. So Quip, sorry, my nose is still itchy. Quip says, I feel like the same thing is going to happen with Star Fox in the end credit scene for the Eternals. I will just put it out there into the world. I thought the Eternals was decent. I didn't think it was as bad as other people thought. I think they had a massive undertaking trying to get all of that exposition out and still have a decent story in, under 3 hours. I think it was too much to ask. I think the Eternals maybe coulda, shoulda, would have been coulda, should have been introduced, peppered in, before the Eternals came out. The Eternals felt like it kind of came out of nowhere, and I think that's part of the problem. I think if people knew who the Eternals were and then they got an Eternals movie, I think that movie would have landed a lot better. But I really do want to see more of the Eternals. I really do want to see Star Fox and so on. Mr. Ryan Clark says, yeah, they'd purge everyone's memory of the Eternals if they could. Like I said, I didn't think it was that bad. Brian Brink, I think I'll get the girl to go with the other Mythic Wizards. Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, I think you could make a good argument for that figure fitting in really, really well with your Necronominus stuff if you wanted to, and sort of remove it from this, not mythic kind of purgatory that it's in a little bit. Justin Mohan, I wonder if they have to pay licensing fees. I assume so, but I can't imagine they're very high. I can't imagine that, this figure is more than, like, I think it's probably $5 or less for a $100 figure that they would be paying in licensing fees. So I don't think that's really where the cost is, but I don't know. I just don't think it's high because I don't think Four Horsemen would be A, willing to pay that much, and B, I don't think that, Joe Manganiello is just got a lineup of people asking for the license to the characters from his own campaign. Maybe they are, but I don't know. Pee-wee's Big Holiday came out in 2016. So 2016, 2016, really? Yeah, we had a young child. We were just too busy doing other stuff. Judge Brown says, I think he's technically brute scale, but a bit bigger. Okay, that's interesting. So I'm just trying to think of what parts they would be reusing. Anyways, Quip says, I like the Eternals too. I just feel like MCU has mostly ignored the event in that movie. Yeah, they absolutely have. I mean, I watched what was it called? The new Captain America Brave New World Order? Brave New World? What was it called? Something New World. Where they talk about it. But other than that, like, yeah, just kind of like, there's little references to like, oh, there's a hand coming out of the ocean, but you'd think there would be a lot more going on in the MCU related to that. But anyway, see, this is okay. An interesting thing is going on here. Now, when I publicly say that I like the Eternals, publicly to, you know, the tens of people watching, Quip says that he liked the Eternals. Brian Brink says, I didn't hate the Eternals. Josh Brown liked the Eternals. Ryan Clark thought the Eternals was okay. Okay, so I see what's going on here. Nobody's willing to publicly admit it, but everybody secretly likes the Eternals. Okay? That's what I think is really going on here. Josh Brown, in relation to these figures, says this is definitely a mutually beneficial relationship. I think so. I think this is kind of one of those things where, like, Joe Manganiello's probably sitting at home playing with his miniatures, and the Four Horsemen call him up and they go, hey, can we make a 8-inch tall articulated action figure version of your figure? And he was probably like, yes. And that was probably it. They're probably like, do you need us to pay licensing fees? And he was like, no, just give me some cool figures. This may be true. Quip says, so all 10 people who don't hate the Eternals have gathered today in Adam's chat. That may be true. Number one Eternals fan channel on YouTube as of right now, according to just me. Josh Brown says lots of fans will now discover the other. That might be true. I mean, that might be true. This could be sort of a situation where people weren't really paying attention to Joe, and Joe's fans weren't really paying attention to the Four Horsemen. So maybe that's what I'm saying. Like, hopefully, if everything works out correctly, the way that I think this is sort of why they've done this, both parties will benefit. So we'll see. Maybe more expensive due to a small wave and lots of new tooling. Maybe, I don't know. Brave New World, Captain America, Brave New World. Yeah, it was good. It was okay. It wasn't great. JMax77, thank you for being the sort of the yin to our yang. I still think it stunk just to balance the pool. Jeff Morris is here. Good to have you, buddy. It hands down has the best depiction of a speedster with Makari. Right past says Eternals was boring. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinions. Spaded one. McDysentery says, I gave the Eternals a shot. No thanks. On more. I feel bad for Kumail Nanjiani. He changed his entire body for that franchise and lost a lot of his nerd aura. I think people still love him. I think he could be back. I mean, I think a couple of those characters could be back. See, like I said, people still like it. Jeff Morris says, rumor has it the Eternals got its name because watching the movie, it felt like it would never end. I wanted more. I was, once the exposition was done 2/3 of the way through the movie, I wanted another movie. I wanted, more story and stuff like that. But that's just me. That's a preference thing. Like I said, not everybody's going to like everything, and that's okay. Not everything is for everybody. But yeah. Spaded one, McDysentery says, I still love Kumail in general. I was a fan of his stand-up. He just put out a new stand-up special. I think it's on Disney Plus, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, 25 minutes. Let's move on. To other sci-fi fantasy stuff. Masters of the Universe, the new Masters of the Universe movie is coming out, which of course means toys, because that's why they make movies. So we've got the new Masters of the Universe Chronicles toys coming out, and this will be relevant. Don't worry, it's not just, I'm not talking about Masters of the Universe just for the sake of Masters of the Universe. So these are a new line from Mattel. Rumor has it that these are replacing the Masterverse line, that the Chronicles is a 6-inch scaled line that will replace Masterverse, which is closer to a 7-inch scale. I don't care about these figures at all. I will just say that right now. This is sort of what's been revealed as far as, you know, what's coming out, what they have planned. It looks like this is probably 2 waves worth of figures. You know, my presumption is that these 3 are maybe wave 1 and the rest of them are like wave 2 and wave kind of 2.5. They look fine. They look like great figures. I think, you know, in terms of articulation scheme and stuff like that, they're doing some different stuff. Ray Paz, I see your comment there. They have this sort of what's sometimes referred to as like an import style joint where it's a little bit wider. There's more pieces, there's more engineering going on there for sure, and it typically allows for better sculpts of the elbows, of the knees. So I'm very curious to see what these figures are like when they come out. You know, sculpting wise, they look good. Paint apps, they look like they have way more paint apps than the Masterverse stuff typically had. I'm not interested in them because these just don't, again, they don't sort of, you know, I don't have an itch that I'm looking to scratch that these, you know, will help me out with. This looks dope. I will probably get Battle Cat and repurpose him to some other line, whether it's Mythic Legions, whether it's Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, whether it's, I don't know. I mean, I could go anywhere, or you could just have a big cat. I mean, I might get 2 and paint one another color and just have a Mythic Legions giant cat that isn't even a mount. But yeah, that's the Masterverse replacement. Now, the interesting part of this is, of course, that this is also happening from Mattel. And don't worry, I'll get to the K-pop Demon Hunter stuff. This is all a prelude. This is the appetizer. I'm trying to, like, you know, kind of whet your appetite for it. Red 5, you did not miss the K-pop talk. That's going to be sort of the big chunk that I'm going to talk about at the end, but I'm building up to it for a number of reasons. And Ray Pass says, I'm also impressed by the elbow and knee joints. Imperious Rex Collect says, I'm all in on the Motu movie toys and I don't even collect Motu. That's fair. I was saying yesterday, I was saying that now that Masterverse is done, I might go back and pick up the new Eternia figures that I didn't get, because sort of knowing that the collection is effectively set and there's, you know, X number of figures, I'm not that far away from having like all the ones that I want. I kind of stopped because I was like, where will it end? How far will I go down this rabbit hole? And now I know how far I can go, so it's a little bit safer to kind of jump in. Red 5, that Battle Cat looks cool. The Battle Cat looks fantastic. I have the Masterverse Battle Cat. It's very, very nice. I missed the Masterverse Panther, and I'm kicking myself. If I see one at a toy show, I'll probably pick it up, because I kept waiting for it to go on sale, and then it just never did, and I just never got it. And then it sold out, and I was bummed. Anyway. Brian Brink says, I have friends who were on the fence about being positive about the Motu movie. Now that this movie is killing a line of figures they love, they now hope the movie fails terribly. I'm excited about the movie. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited about the movie. I just don't need the toys that go along with it. The movie, you know, the designs look good. The cast looks good. I haven't watched the preview. I don't watch previews for movies that I intend to watch. Because I don't need to be enticed to watch it if I already know that I want to watch it. So I'm excited about the movie. It just the toys. Yeah. I'm not a Masters of the Universe guy, so, you know, more versions of He-Man are not something that I need. Ray Pass says, I usually don't collect movie figures, but I am down for these. I'm gonna go back a slide. I'm gonna go back to this while I sort of round out comments on this, and then we'll move on. Justin Mohan says, why bother making the figure 6-inch and then have the kids why bother making the figure 6 inches and then have the kids line that is 5.5 inches? It's a different form, different sort of look. So I think it makes sense. I think what makes sense for Mattel, and this is sort of part of what I'm going to get to with the DC stuff and then with the K-pop Demon Hunter stuff, is I think that Mattel has now sort of figured out what other brands have figured out, which is if you can make your lines more cross-compatible, then a casual fan can pick up a character and just sort of drop it into, you know, the same shelf and the same play patterns. And I think that you know, for what it's worth, I think if your figure is too much out of scale, it feels like you're buying something that's not related to the other things that you already have. And so I I genuinely believe that someone at Mattel has finally figured out that the 6-inch scale is where the vast majority of collectors, adult collectors, are kind of collecting. And the closer you can get to a Marvel Legends figure in terms of scale and size, the more likely it is that somebody picks something up, you know, to add to their collection. That's my personal opinion. I also think that has relevance when we're going to talk about DC and when we're going to talk about K-pop Demon Hunters. So Brian Brink, personally, I'm hoping this movie revives the Motu Mega Bloks line. That's the Motu I was collecting. That's fair. They were phenomenal. Let's see. Hello, Allison. Good to have you. Chaos to the Fly says, I love Evelyn design, but I'm biased because I'm an Evelyn. Battle Cat is so cool looking. Evelyn's design looks good. The face, the Allison Brie face, I hope it looks better in person. That's all I can say. Are they restarting all He-Man stuff? I don't know. I've only heard a rumor that Masterverse is done. I've only heard, sort of through the grapevine. I don't know where that source information comes from, so I'm literally just sort of parroting what I've heard. Time will tell. But what I have heard, what I've sort of been made to understand, is that Masterverse will effectively wind down. Anything that's been announced will still be released, but then Chronicles will sort of take over in a different scale. Now, does that mean that we'll get, new Eternia in the Chronicles line or vintage collection, cartoon collection, or whatever in the Chronicles line? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't collect most of this stuff. So this is more what I'm hearing from fans of Masters of the Universe than any sort of firsthand knowledge that I have. Gatey's Toy says, I love the Legends reference. Stay shady, Mattel. I was enjoying, Justin Mohan says, I was enjoying the vintage Masterverse stuff. I hope it's not over. Did you see the kids' toys? They seem to be like Origins, but for the movies. Yes. So I think they're going to sort of continue in that 5.5 sort of limited articulation kind of kids line or kind of core line, which seems to be what Mattel calls their sort of price point lines. And then, these will be more of like a deluxe offering. But we'll get there. Don't worry. Spaded One McDysentery says, a lot of my collecting is nostalgia driven, and it's hard to get excited about merch for a reboot that hasn't yet earned its place. That is 100% fair. Ryan Clark says that Trapjaw is super cool. Looks very good. It's got the Trapjaw to me has a lot of kind of Mondo Trapjaw vibes to me. The weird speckled paint on the armor though looks odd to me. Ray Pass says, if they make the collector's line of the DC characters with the level of articulation of these new Motu movie figures, I will be excited. This stuff on screen for the DC kids line is meh. Okay, let's move on to the DC stuff because that's where I'm going with this next. And Ray says, I hope there is really a collector's line for adults, hopefully wired capes and soft goods. I hope so too. And I think there will be. I think this is what Mattel has finally kind of figured out. I think Mattel might have finally figured out that if you can appeal to an existing market rather than sort of trying to create your own, you'll sell more stuff. McFarlane DC stuff, never bought a single one. Not because I dislike DC, but because the scale was off. There was too many pins in all the joints, and they were big, clumsy, clunky, ugly pins, and they could have done better, in my opinion. There were too many releases. There were too many sort of obscure ones that weren't, just pull out of a comic book, not a appearance in only one comic, one time in one issue. Give us the good stuff. Which I think I truly think Mattel will do with their DC line. Josh Brown says, yeah, they are resetting scale ahead of DC collector line. That's what I think. I think they're resetting the Mattel scale across the board to kind of bring everything in line with everything else. I can understand if you are trying to sort of align your product with Mythic Legions and you go in that kind of 6.5 inch to 7 inch scale, which maybe that's what they were doing with Masterverse. But I don't necessarily think that those collectors are the same collectors. If I'm wrong, whatever. But I feel like more people that are going to look at DC stuff want their DC stuff to match with their Marvel stuff. The McFarlane stuff was too big; it didn't mash. There was a crossover book that came out recently. I think someone please correct me because I don't read either of these characters. I think there was a Batman Spider-Man comic that came out. There is a Superman Spider-Man comic that is coming out. So, DC and Marvel, historically, although they're sort of rivals, obviously, I think that when they play nice, they sort of benefit. There's sort of a mutually beneficial thing when they sort of try to build each other up and sort of give credit where credit is due. They're very different. I mean, I've had it explained to me before, and I will say this: I've always been a Marvel guy, and when I heard this description, I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me. DC characters have always been larger than life. They've always been sort of superhuman or sort of like overly heroic, whereas Marvel characters are almost always very human and very sort of grounded and down to earth, that then have sort of like abilities on top of that. So they're just very, very different takes. And to me, that just made perfect sense. But anyway, that's I don't know why I mentioned that. Anyways, let's get back to toys. Mattel reimagines the sort of DC superhero lines. This is, of course, a 6-inch scaled kids line, or core line, if you want to call it that. And I'm going to call it that because over on Toy News International, there was an article written by Jay Cochran, who kind of just looked at, what what Mattel could do with DC and kind of broke it down really well. Mattel has done the WWE sort of in this same way. So WWE has their main event series, which is like their core figures, which are their $12.95 figures. They have also had their elite figures, which are $24.99, and then they have the ultimate editions, which are like, 35 bucks, kind of in that price range. So I genuinely believe that this article is bang on. I genuinely believe that what Mattel is going to do with these is very likely have sort of a good, better, best. This will be the good. The better will be sort of the standard $25 figures, and then the best will be like the fully loaded out options where you get a character that has like a ton of accessories. Just looking at the characters that we've got here, right? You could see a Green Lantern that has like multiple translucent green kind of effects parts or something like that. Batman with sort of a full loadout of all his like bat gear. Superman, what would you do for a deluxe Superman? You would do ice breath, laser eyes, long-haired head, the revival, rebirth. What was it? I can't remember what it was called now. When he comes back to life. I don't know if that Superman is really a deluxe one, but there's definitely characters that are like more suited to like a full-on deluxe bundled version. Let's see. Quip said, Classified and Legends are the only lines that really compete with Motu Origins. Masterverse might compete against those lines better, or it could be a if you can't beat them, join them decision. I don't know. I mean, I genuinely don't know. It feels like it feels like there's a lot of stuff at the 6-inch scale, and it feels like a lot of new companies that jump in at the 6-inch scale. So I just think that there's way more crossover potential for your DC characters if they're 6-inch scale. And by extension, your Motu figures, and by extension, your K-pop Demon Hunter figures. Red 5 says, with the DC Kids line, sounds interesting. Let's stay the collector line as A characters, and maybe the kids line sprinkles in C and D characters or army builders. It might help build the collection fast. I think that's always a really difficult one for people to sort of figure out, right? Like, which characters do you put in wave 1? Which characters do you put in wave 2? How many waves in does a line have to be before you get really deep cuts? In my humble opinion, and it's purely my opinion, if you had a wave that's 4 figures, I think if you have like 2 mainline characters and 2 sort of middle to deep cuts, that's the way to do it. And the reason that I say that is, from a purely business perspective, if you give people all the characters that they want right up front, you run the risk of effectively blowing your load too early. Like, if you put out all the heavy hitters in the first 2 waves, and then wave 3 is like a bunch of characters that people have to like Google search to figure out where they came from, you might lose interest. People might lose interest sooner rather than later. So I think it's a fine line that they have to walk for sure. Let's see. And Quip says Masterverse going to Chronicles might compete better. I think so. Like, I genuinely think so. Again, I think collectors, we kind of live in this really golden age of toys where so much stuff is 6-inch scale, that people that might not have bought other lines as kids, they're like, well, now they can go on the same shelf. Now they can be in the same picture. Now they can sort of be in the same scene. If your 6-inch scale figure can fit in a classified vamp, why can't He-Man ride along with Clutch and defeat Skeletor and Cobra Commander? Like, I just think it makes more sense, but that's just me. And Brick Something says, I'm bummed because I love Masterverse, but if they're chasing Hasbro, Classified, and Legends fans, makes sense. And I assume that's the same for the DC stuff. I think it is. I think it's just I think it's just, when you're the outlier, it just, you can bang that drum all you want, but I think at the end of the day, 6-inch scale is sort of where this price point seems to work best. Gady's Toys says, something I never talk about is I like the lady figures, and WTF Mattel. I don't know. You know what? I think Mattel, I think we have a much better chance of getting a lot more women in the Mattel DC line than we have in previous versions of DC. I'm just saying. And Mattel said collector stuff comes out early 2027 or January 2027. I could see that. I could see, this time 2027 seeing this poster, but for the sort of the collector stuff. Too many Batmans. They just gave us a ton. Yeah, I'm just saying, I have more faith in Mattel to do the women than I have, in previous iterations. It's crazy you guys see that in McFarlane toys, but you can't see that in Super 7. In what respect? Because I don't think McFarlane and Super 7 are really the same stuff. If you mean like limited articulation and pins, I definitely see it in Super 7. And I definitely don't love it. So I'm not, I don't think it's an apt comparison, but anyway. Partnering DC and Chronicles will definitely be a good idea. That I think so. Brian Brink says, I stayed away from Todd for all the same reasons. They're cold ankles. Ray Pass says Super 7 limited articulation is awful, and at that price point, it's a slap in the face. That's fair. I mean, that's a fair assessment. I'm not criticizing. I wasn't criticizing the articulation in other lines. I know that people sort of make that argument. I'm not sure. Maybe did I suggest that? I'm not sure what you're sort of trying to sort of connect there. I love Super 7 stuff. I don't think they're trying to make the same thing that McFarlane is, or that like Hasbro is, or like I think Super 7 is trying to do something different. So I don't think Super 7 really, is that relevant in that respect. But I'm also I don't have anything. I realized I was looking through my pre-orders. I don't have anything on pre-order from Super 7 for 2026. And I don't foresee myself picking up anything from them. I think what I've got from Turtles, I'm pretty much done for Turtles. I'm pretty well done for Thundercats. I still need Tiger. I still need Bengali, but then beyond that, I mean, I'm pretty good. Anyway, like I said, I wasn't really talking about Super 7, so I'm worried about this DC stuff. If this doesn't sell well, they won't justify more adult-oriented collectibles. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think they're very different markets. I think, what you see in big box stores is going to be this stuff. What you see on Big Bad Toy Store and other, online retailers and sort of the mom and pop collector-oriented shops, comic book shops, I think is going to be the adult stuff. And I think people are really sort of excited to see what Mattel might do. Red 5, I can never understand why people want to mix and match their lines. Technically, DC and Marvel are separate universes. Yeah, but they are and they aren't. They cross over. They're all superheroes. You can kind of imagine that they are the same universe. That's what I'm saying. You can imagine it more easily if they're the same scale figures. So I think that's there it is. That's more elegantly put. DC is gods acting human. Marvel is humans acting like gods. There you go. Except for Eternals, who are in fact gods, right? Aren't they? Isn't that anyway? 2 comics, Batman, Deadpool. That's what it was. And Deadpool, Batman. Each company wrote their own, but there's a Spider-Man, Superman coming out, I think in February, which I'm actually really excited for because I like both of those characters. Yeah, DC was established to be a modern pantheon of gods in their fantasy world. So Metropolis and Gotham are, versus Marvel's real world. Let's see. Allison Troy says, these look great. If the kids line is 10 to 12 bucks, I'm in. I like my superhero toys to look like superhero toys. I don't need fancy face scan printing nonsense. It actually kills the vibe for me. That's fair. And I think these will do well. And I think the collector's line will do well as well. But I'm going to skip some of the chat because I don't want to get too bogged down by comic book talk, so that we still have time to talk about Netflix movies. Let's see. Sorry, I'm skipping a whole bunch here. Justin Mohan, I like 7-inch. That's fair. Yeah, no one's gonna tell you can't. Brian, was I just way behind in the chat? Yeah, I wonder if Mattel will be more prolific with the lady characters. I hope so. I have faith that they will be. Red 5 says they need to put out a Wonder Woman within the first year. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Okay. So I thought it was, I didn't realize that's what it was. I just read the sentence wrong. I totally read that sentence wrong. That's where I know what that means. I just read it in sort of a different context and didn't get that from the context. I guess I wasn't angry enough in the moment. And Allison Troy makes a very good point. Last time Mattel did DC, they gave us a lot of the ladies. And Ray Pass says McFarlane and Super 7. I don't think those two lines. Yeah, so like I was saying, I don't think those two lines are sort of competing for the same dollars. So I don't really consider them, you know, when I'm sort of suggesting, look at this as a comparison to this. Super 7's kind of their own thing. Yeah, anyway. That was sort of the point that I was not making, but was sort of, that's why I wasn't referencing Super 7 at all. Let's see. Okay, shall we move on to this? This is, of course, K-pop Demon Hunters. This is, of course, something that Mattel has picked up the licensing for. We have already seen Hot Toys take a crack at these figures. They look phenomenal. They're very expensive, and I'm not going to buy them because they're too expensive and the wrong scale. And full transparency, before we go into talk about these action figures, I haven't watched this whole movie. I watched the first half-ish, give or take. My kids have watched it lots of times. I've heard the songs constantly for the last 6 months, 7 months, give or take, somewhere in that range. I think that was sort of like summer release. Haven't watched the full movie. Aesthetically, these look phenomenal. As an IP, this is a really, really cool IP. I love how the figures look. I love where they could go with this. I hope we get Derpy Tiger. I hope we get the Crow. I hope we get, more ghouls and stuff like that. More of the monsters, more of the demons. So I'm just really, really excited about the toys. This is like, I'm gonna have to go back and sort of like watch the rest of the movie because I just have never, like I said, it's my kids could be watching it right now for all I know. It always feels like it's on in the background at our house, and I've just never sat down to watch it. I just don't have time. Like, honestly, that's 100% why I've not finished it. Allison Troy says, I have not watched a second of this Demon Killer Pop Princess cartoon and have no idea what it's all about, but I want figures and dolls of these ladies. They're too cool. That's exactly where I'm at, apart from I have watched more seconds than Allison has. From what I've seen, Allison, I actually think you would probably really enjoy it. Red Vibes. What? You really ought to watch it. I know. It's not because, again, it's like Pee-wee. I didn't watch Pee-wee's Big Holiday or whatever it was called because I just haven't had time. The amount of time in my day is almost entirely already spoken for long in advance. So I'm struggling. I haven't watched season 5 of Stranger Things. I haven't, there's a whole bunch of other things that I haven't watched anyway, don't get me started on that. I should do a show that's like, here's the things I haven't watched. Should I? Yes or no? Should I skip it? Anyway, Scotty Quippen, Quip says the movie is rad. I know, I get it. I understand it. Brick says, saw it the first weekend and my family was obsessed. Okay. Gatey's Toy says, it's a movie I was like, this isn't for me. But then Dole demanded I watch it. And within 5 minutes, I was like, this is my entire personality now. I get it. Red 5 says, the 6-inch Mattel line is going to be the Huntrix and Saja Boys right off the bat. You get a whole collection right off the bat. Yeah, have they said, now I'll get into that, and I have they said if it's going to be one wave or if it's going to be two? I think they'd be better served to do it in 2 waves, and I will sort of break down what I think they should do for those 2 waves when we get there. Jeff Moore says the movie is fun but made for kids, so a good movie to watch with your daughter if you have one. I have 2 and a son, and they've all watched it and they all love it. Brian Brink says BTW, which I know stands for by the way. Wonder Man was excellent. It's on my list. Quip says 2 waves. Wave 1 is the girls and Genu. Wave 2, Saja boys. I would have done it different. I really would have done it different. Because I think Mattel has the capacity to put the lines out very shortly, like in short succession. But anyway, what are we talking about? We're talking about these. So that is, the movie poster. That's the sort of the cover poster. These are the figures. They look fantastic. Articulation aside, I think these are going to be like $22 figures. So I think, between the original sculpts and the accessories that you get, I think the articulation looks good. You've got what looks like, good articulation in the ankles, double jointed knees for some of them, single jointed knees for others. But I think, what you're getting here is going to work really, really well. Accessory wise, these things look really, really good. These are two of the girls. Rumi's the one girl, right? But I don't know what the other names are. So you'll have to we'll just talk about them as though they don't have names. I know they do, but so here's what I would do. I would do 2 of the girls and 2 of the boys in wave 1, and then I would do 1 girl and 3 of the boys in wave 2. That would be how I would break it up. But I would also have them come out in short succession, so that maybe 2, maybe 3 months in between, if that, just to sort of get people to sort of have a little bit more time to buy them all. Also because that how it's store shelves, right? If you get 1 peg for these, if it's a mixed box and it's like everything's going to be gone, and you're going to anyway. My preference would be 2 girls, 2 boys for wave 1, 1 girl, 3 boys for wave 2. That's just how I would do it. Anyway, Zoe and Mira. Okay, so their ramen cups actually, their noodles are actually have their names on them. Okay, so that's an easy way to sort of get it right. Let's see. Gatey's Toy says, I mean, there's enough. Okay, let's go over all the figures, and then I'll come back to the comments, and I'll start with that one. So here are the figures. Like I said, what you get for these is phenomenal. So you get a figure, you get alternate hands. One, of course, has chopsticks, which goes along with the noodles that you get, and then you get their weapons, and then you get alternate face plates. So you for all 3 of the girls, you get an eating face, and then sort of a excited or emotional face, and then a more neutral face. The figures look phenomenal. The colors are fun. The designs are great. The detail work looks good. The weapons look really, really good. I'm curious to see how they do them, whether they sort of go kid friendly and they're too soft and they bend and whatever, or whether they're a little bit, better than that. And the boys look great too. They get their soda pop cans, and then they get sort of their little accessories, sunglasses, microphones, alternate faces, signed ab prints, the heart, romance, isn't that his name? They have terrible names, but they're great characters. What isn't necessarily seen in these slides, what I'm incredibly impressed by, is how much texture there is on the figures. So anything that's like knit looks like it's knit. There even appears to be texture on like the pants and everything like that. So everything that they're doing looks really, really, really good. And I mean, color-wise, like just how vibrant these are, how much, like just how much these are going to pop on the shelf, whether that's a store shelf or whether that's on a collector shelf. I'm in. These are going to be day one for me, because they look rad. I've never seen these versions of these characters. I didn't make it far enough. I believe that this is like the final battle. I'm pretty sure that this is sort of like the end of the movie where, the big face off happens. She's got a bigger sword, and then her, ponytail is longer or something like that. and then Demon Boy is more of a demon. I do think that instrument is lacking in paint apps, but hopefully it won't be when we actually get around to it. But who knows? Anyway, these like I said, looks absolutely fantastic. And it looks like Mattel is doing these sort of in the same scale that they're going to be doing all of those other things. And if that's the case, then I expect this to be, like I said, that sort of price point, and that's going to sort of fit. So that's where I was sort of going with all of this, is like, I wouldn't be surprised if they did, and they are doing, a bunch of different lines. These sort of fashion dolls that they're also calling them, those may end up in our house as well. We're not going to look at those today because fashion dolls isn't really this channel's vibe. But I know my kids, and I know that we'll probably get those. So Gatey's Toys, there's enough costumes for them to do multiple waves and keep the big three in the mix. I absolutely think you're right there. I think and back to this too, if waves 1 and 2 come out close enough together, then I think it works. And let's be honest, I think if you're going to get all the girls, I think you're probably going to get all the boys. I mean, it's 8 figures total to have everybody. So I don't think it's a huge ask. But I don't know. Chaos to the Fly. I have seen it over 100 times, and we'll get the Mattel figures. I really hope that's not how they do it. You'll get them all. It doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, like, for me, I'm going to get all 8 characters, and then probably that final battle 2-pack. I think this is kind of a no-brainer. I think however they release them, it doesn't really matter. People are going to get all of them. Brick says K-pop, Korean mythology, badass action, music, and animation like the Spider-Verse films. Yes, and yes. Glad it's been embraced heavily. Yeah, me too. I mean, it's I think Netflix is doing, like, Netflix is releasing a lot of stuff that I think is sort of appealing to people in different ways than stuff has been. I'm looking at K-pop Demon Hunters. I'm looking at like Blue Eyed Samurai. Like, I think all this stuff has appealed to people for a long time. I think they're really pushing it into the mainstream in a way that sort of takes, not, I don't know how to like really express this. They're not presenting it as though it's a niche thing. They're presenting these things as though everybody should want to watch them, and that they're no different from the stuff that you're used to, which I think is awesome. I think it's the way to go, because I think it allows people to watch something that maybe they would be like, oh, that's not for me, that's for a different audience. It's like, no, I mean, if you like it, you're the audience. If you don't like it, maybe you weren't the audience. That's what it should really come down to. But anyway. Quip says we still need demon form Saja boys and outfit alternatives for the girls, plus Derpy and Susie, of course. Is Susie the crow? I can only assume that that's the crow. Winning with the faceplates. Love it. I love the faceplates. I think it's genius. Jeff Morris says, glad they come with stands. I predict they might be hard to stand without the stands. Yeah, I think that might be right. Gatey's Toys, Mira is me, but if I just get her, Slippery Slope to buy more, you'll buy all of them. You know you will. I don't know who you're trying to kid. And then Quip. I actually know their names. I don't know the girls' names, but I know Abby, Romance, Mystery, and Baby. Because of the scene where they're doing like the talk show, and they basically explain why they have all their names. Abby has abs, Romance is like the heartthrob, Mystery has his eyes covered, and Baby has a bottle. Like, I don't know. It's ridiculous, but fun. And their names are plays on the stereo. Yes. I know all this stuff. It's why isn't he showing his abs? maybe that's version 2. Maybe that's the version 2 that we'll get, that you'll definitely get. I get it. There's a lot of love for K-pop Demon Hunters. Brick something says, I demand a video of Victoria talking about all the recalled K-pop Demon Hunter toys and give us her thoughts. Revealed, not recalled. Okay, here's the thing. I haven't shown them these toys yet because I can't get them yet. I don't want to show them until I can put them in their hands. I don't want to be asked every single day, where are they? Why don't we have them yet? Brick, this is, Netflix is just giving us things that the other studios don't own and continually shovel down our throats. Netflix is great counter programming to nostalgia rut. Yeah, I mean, and whether it's animation, whether it's films, whether it's TV shows, I find personally what I watch most on Netflix is like Netflix's original content. I don't go on Netflix very often to look up something that I've seen before. Like, I don't go back and watch things. I find that I gravitate more towards the new stuff, for better or worse. I mean, there's some garbage that they put out too, but and now I'm forgetting all the names of other stuff that they've done, but they've done a few things that I just thought were like so good. Let's see. That's exactly it. You know, your kids are going to ask every day till these toys come out. Yes, they will. Which I am not going to deal with. So that's why they don't know that these exist. All right. Did I have anything else? Did I have any other slides? Or was that the end? I think that was the end. Oh, wait, no, I do. G.I. Joe. Let's move on. As I said at the beginning, we were talking about G.I. Joe, but I forgot that this was at the end because this just popped up this morning. G.I. Joe Day was today. I don't know what that means. I don't know why it's G.I. Joe Day. But there's some reveals for G.I. Joe. These are, of course, the digital renders for figures that I believe are going to be put up for pre-order. We're going to see physical reveals and then pre-orders for these figures. Maybe not all of these, maybe not specifically all of these, but at least some of these probably at New York Toy Fair, which is in February, which is February. When's New York Toy Fair? It's like middle of the month. So these are going to come up again very, very soon, presumably for pre-order. So revealed today, we had Airtight, we had Taurus and Red Dog. These all look good. I don't need these. The Renegades were never, something that I loved personally, but I know a lot of people love them. We've also gotten Mercer, and then that the Mercer and Slaughter 2-pack that I think is out, which I also didn't get. So I think a lot of people are going to be very, very excited about those. Airtight is fine, but he's not really one that I loved as a kid, as a vintage figure or anything like that. So I'm kind of good. Like these ones, I'm probably going to pass on. These, day one. Hydro Viper and Overkill. These look fantastic. Hydro Viper was one of my favorites. I had Wetsuit and Hydro Viper as my sort of aquatic Joes. And two of my favorite Joes. I love the webbed hand on the Viper. I do hope, though, that we get an alternate hand. What I hope is we get an extra set of hands. I hope we get grip, like C-grip hands or sort of trigger hands, as well as a pair of webbed hands. I would like to actually see another webbed hand as an option. Just for the sake of if you pose them, left to right and that hand works, that's great. But if you pose them right to left, and then the other hand, you got to use the trigger hand. Like, if you're swimming, depending on sort of the angle or whatever, it might not work. So I would like to see, two webbed hands, as well as two non-webbed. I mean, they could still be webbed as long as they can hold accessories, I guess. And then Overkill. Overkill, I think, was the figure in these reveals that people kind of went, but I really like Overkill because I really like that they're leaning into sort of all eras of the G.I. Joe sort of vintage toys. I love that they're doing things that they did before. Not everybody's going to love everything, but the reality is that everything is somebody's favorite thing. So I guarantee, to some extent, I suspect it's safer. I suspect that out there somewhere in the G.I. Joe fandom, somebody's favorite vintage figure was Overkill. And that person is so excited right now. Or not. If that person loves Classified, then they're really excited now, but maybe they're not. Anyway, I love that they're doing it. I love that they did Dark Lawn. I think that Overkill kind of fits into that, into that realm. So I think it's cool. I like it. I'm gonna get Overkill. I think he looks rad. I think his accessories look rad. I hope that hot pink is as hot in real life as it is on the screen right now. But yeah, both of these look fantastic. Really, really excited about these. Very, very excited about these as well. Ninja Force Zartan is one that I've been hoping they would do for a while. I think it was a no-brainer. I mean, they're doing a bunch of the Ninja Force stuff now, so it seemed inevitable that we would see, this version of Zartan. So excited for that. Zanya and the Swamp Skier, or the Swamp Skier, is that what it's called? I feel like it has a different name. Anyway, this vehicle, I think this is one I'm gonna have to get, 2 of these for sure to get an extra vehicle. The loadout for her looks really, really cool too. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the extra of that figure, but I really, really want 2 of those Swamp Skiers. And then we had this, which is not Wild Bill. I know a lot of people thought this was a Wild Bill, but they were just, putting it in silhouette. It is not Wild Bill. I know what this is, and it's not Wild Bill. Let's see. Gatey's Toy says Slaughters, Renegades, love. Yeah, and I don't. Chaos to the Fly, just going back to the K-pop Demon Hunter stuff. Sorry that to disappoint that we're not talking about that anymore. But stalking the company's page because they are releasing a Derpy Tiger Furby and Nerf weapon. The Nerf weapons I could see us getting to. Gatey's Toy says Toy Fair during Valentine's Day, so I have an excuse not to go out. Brick says Airtight used to joke with Ted that he handled farts. Hazardous materials specialist. Yeah, that's fair. Ray Paz says they look great. They all look really, really good. Justin Mohad says that Spider-Man Superman comes out in March, and then a second one comes out in April. Treasury editions get re-released this month in January. Okay, so I got that a little bit wrong, but I'll definitely be picking those ones up. Ray Pass says, I'm trying to figure out who that mystery rendered figure is. The answer is you won't figure it out. More on that once I get through the chat here. Mr. Ryan Clark says, these classified reels don't do much for me, but I've been known to grab Joe's when they're in front of me. Is Classified 6 years old this year? Yes. 2020 was the first year for Classified. I'm shocked that it's gone this far, this long. I'm shocked that we're getting Overkill, which is, again, why I'm so excited is that, like, if you had said in 2020 that G.I. Joe Classified will get far enough that they'll release Overkill, I don't think anybody would have believed you, or they would have been like, oh yeah, that Hasbro being stupid. But it's neither. I mean, I think they've earned the right in some respect, in some weird world. to put out Overkill because they've put out 200 other figures. It's bananas, but that's where we are in 2026. Brick says, never had that Hydro Viper as a kid, faded out by then from Joe collecting, but always thought they were very dope looking. Didn't know Overkill, loved Urge Overkill. Fair. The new Dreadnought is dope. Is she one of the Zartan Z's siblings? No, I think she's Zartan's daughter, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can correct me, or it might already be in the chat. But I'm pretty sure that she is Zartan's daughter. Allison says, I'll buy the extra figure if you don't want it. I'll just ship it to you. Now that, just remind me. I'll buy 2 and just remind me. And I will happily ship her to you. Marshall Bravestar, not quite. Marty McFly, Clint Eastwood, not quite. It's a cowboy. That's not far off. It's a crossover with Pace Salsa. It's the cowboy that says New York City. Yeah, and he's got a string, he's got a pull string in his back that you release, and he says that. Jeff Moore says, I thought the mystery figure was revealed to be Zartan in Wild Bill costume. I do not believe that is the case. Okay, so this is not my information. I'm not at liberty to tell you what this figure is, but I can tell you, or I can't tell you who this figure is, but what I can tell you, because I think this has been revealed in other places, openly and publicly, is that this is a new character. This is a new G.I. Joe character, in the same way that a couple years ago we got Wolf Spider. I think that's what this is. Or that's what I've been sort of told by information that has proven to be reliable for the last 6 years of Classified. So this is a new character. It's not a Wild Bill deluxe figure with a poncho or something like that. It is in fact a new character. It's an original character for the Classified line, which I am 100% on board for. That's all I can share. But anybody that's sort of speculating, oh, it's a Cowboy Zartan or it's Wild Bill or whatever, you're not gonna get it. I thought it was funny that in the social media sort of release thing, Hasbro basically said, like, who do you think it will be, knowing full well that they're putting out an original character that no one will be able to guess because it's an original character. Brian Brink, I don't know if he, anyway, is his name something like Giddy Up or Yeehaw? No, it's not. I actually really like the name that I've heard. Now, whether that name is revealed by Hasbro to be the name or not, I can't share it because, like I said, it's not my information to share. But I like the name. I like the idea of what this character is. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to this character in a very big way. I really like the idea of Wolf Spider too. So I guess I'm the demographic that's buying Overkill and this guy, Giddy Up. Oh, a Toy Story G.I. Joe crossover. That I would buy that too. Hey, what's going on? Paints Toy Samples is here. Good to have you, buddy. Brick says, I heard he's called Outlaw and that he kills fascists. I've heard that he's not called Outlaw. Whether he kills fascists or not, I don't know. But that would be a very timely figure. I don't think Hasbro has the guts to have a character like that, despite what historically G.I. Joe has represented. But anyway, Larry Hama might write that character, but I don't know that Hasbro would make that character. Anyways, that's it. That's all. I think that's everything. I just got to double check. Yeah, that's all I had for slides. So that's it. We covered the Four Horsemen stuff. We covered all the Mattel news that I care about. We covered the G.I. Joe Day reveals. So bye, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. Should I just start doing hard outs? Just like, okay, I'm done talking. Bye. I will once, just now that I've said it, because it's just really funny. But I'll have to be prepared for it, which I won't ever be. So it'll never happen. Yeah, Brick. I agree. Hasbro are cowards. Let's be honest. That's they're but whatever. They're Hasbro. They're a big corporation. They have to be accountable to shareholders and so on and so forth. It is what it is. That's literally it. I mean, it is what it is. Hasbro is not what it used to be. Hasbro is not a privately owned company that can sort of make all those decisions on their own. That's why I like indie stuff. That's why that's why I'm just not that interested in a lot of the big stuff that's coming out. Sadly, there was not a lot of indie toy news this week that I haven't sort of already touched on in the last couple weeks. Otherwise, I would have just talked about that stuff. I was just talking about big companies. I guess Four Horsemen's still pretty small. But other than that, just goes out mid-sentence. Exactly. There's channels that do that, and I love it. I always find it very funny. It's just I like the little, going out, the outro music and the little, the clip and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think I'll ever do that. It just adds. Yeah. Anyway. Red 5. What about Super 7 Invincible line? Okay. I don't know Invincible. Add that to the list of things that I didn't read the comic book. I'm aware of it. I'm aware of the comic book, but never read it. I'm aware of the animated series on Amazon. Never watched it. What I'm confused by is Super 7 doing an Invincible line when Jada at San Diego Comic-Con announced that they're doing a line. So I don't really know what's going on, who's doing what. But it's an IP that I, don't even have kids that are interested in. So it's not really on my radar. That's why I didn't talk about it. I did see the announcement. I did see a lot of people sort of excited about that. But I wouldn't know what to say about it. Super 7 is doing an Invincible line. Good for them. And good for fans, I guess. Having more choices, right? If only Jada's doing it and people don't have choices, maybe that's not the best. Maybe having multiple people do it is the way to go. Let's see. Yeah, I know. Invincible is not for kids. And Red 5 says, odd that two companies got it. Well, there's a lot of companies doing a lot of IPs, so it's not that surprising. It'll be interesting to see how similar the lines are or how different the lines are. That's what I'm more curious about. Brick says, I assume the Invincible thing might be one has the comic books and one has the cartoon looks. Either way, weirdo. Yeah, I mean everybody has a Ninja Turtles line. So does Invincible have that much market appeal? Again, this goes back to the first thing that we talked about with Joe Manganiello's D&D characters, right? Like how big is the market for some of these IPs? How big is the market? How untapped are the wallets of the folks that are going to buy a line of figures from some of these IPs? Is it enough that they would buy two? I don't know. That seems like a big stretch to me. But anyway. That's I think all I got for this week. Next week there will not be a live show. Next week on Sunday is of course the Super Bowl. We're having friends over to watch the Super Bowl. I will be rooting for the Seahawks. If you are rooting for the New England Patriots, I feel bad for you because I don't think it's going to end well for the Patriots. Not as well as it did in 2015. So I won't be here next Sunday. That being said, I do have a video that just needs to be edited and sort of uploaded that I will probably run next Sunday in the same time slot, but I probably won't be around. I might be if I can sort of get everything else done and prepped and lined up. I might be in the chat, but there may or may not be a video next week. If there is, it will be pre-recorded. Other than that, it's been an absolute pleasure. As always, it's always fun to hang out with you guys, talk toys, and we'll be back very, very soon with more news. Hopefully in the next few weeks, there's more updates for Space Zombies for Mars. We'll have more to talk about, and I can sort of share a little bit more of that. But coming up in the next couple of weeks, there's also, as I said, New York Toy Fair, Mezco's stuff, which I'm now obsessed by and obsessed with. And I may be opening figures on Wednesday that are Mezco, maybe not. I'll be doing a live on Wednesday night, opening some toys. But I got some Mezcos on the way because I'm a fool. Anyways, you get about 15 minutes to get snacks and bathroom break, and then jump over onto Brick's channel to check out Brick Something News. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Now that's a country song. Living and loving and driving fast cars, whether I'm here or I'm on Mars, I'm gonna die young, baby, that I know. I'll leave a beautiful memory when I go. Well, I woke up this morning feeling pretty damn tired. I was up all night at a moonlight fire. There was beer, whiskey, beautiful girls, but you know we can't afford no diamonds and pearls. So I told them I was famous for singing this song. I thought for a while I'd strung them along. One said, fellas, got a pretty good game. Tomorrow I won't even remember his name. Well, living and loving and driving fast cars, whether I'm here or I'm on Mars, I'm gonna die young, baby, that I know, but I'll leave a beautiful memory when I go. I'll play that just like your daddy taught you. Grabbed myself a beer. I jumped in the car that I wanted to steer. I told them guys I'll be back in the gym, but I accidentally drove my car off a cliff. So now I'm dead, but the song remains, even though I scattered all of my brains on the inside of my black T-bird. I hope y'all remember these beautiful words. Well, living and loving and driving fast cars, whether I'm here or I'm on Mars, I'm gonna die young, baby, that I know, but I'll leave a beautiful